Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 587.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swarts, and each episode I'm joined by some of the best financial independence and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. You know, many short-term rental real estate owners or investors, they struggle with finding a training program with a proven long-term track record and having the tactical knowledge on how to build their short-term rental business. And here's the key: without needing to buy or own any property, which is really unique. And so what? So they can thrive financially, right? And really build their wealth. Well, our next guest is a full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur, popular podcast host, author, speaker, and coach, and just an all-around problem solver. He has a wealth of knowledge to share. He has owned hundreds of units, raised tens of millions of dollars, started Cashflow Diary, which is an amazing not only podcast, but also training program for real estate investors. So please welcome with me to the show, Jay Massey. Hey, Jay, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for making it possible and taking the time.
Excellent. So will you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and then your current focus?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Hi to everyone out there. What it comes down to is that real estate for me was a solution to a problem. A while ago, I guess over 11 years ago now, my wife, when she's pregnant, she has a condition known as hyperemesis. What that means is she couldn't eat or drink. I had a punctured lung and was born with asthma. I could not walk and talk simultaneously without fainting. At the time, I was a financial planner. The challenge was I could not go to work to earn income, and neither could she. And we needed a way to develop income without working. And a friend said, hey, you should become a real estate investor, which was actually very ironic at the time because at the end of the day, we had a credit score of 398. We were squatting in bank-owned property. We were making decisions like, hey, do we buy electricity today or do we pay for food? And really long story short, I told them that you'd have to teach me everything you know, and I have to be able to do it with literally no money and no credit. And I started out as a wholesaler. So we did about 200 of those transactions, then got introduced to taxes and started keeping the property after that. And that's how we got up to around a little more than 400 doors. As well as owning mortgages, cell phone towers, commercial real estate, and single-family houses, and most notably, apartment buildings. And through all of that, people started asking, hey, how did you learn to do all this? And then I just started teaching them. And then from there, one of my students said, hey, you should consider this short-term rentals idea. And I was like, what do you mean? And after looking at the numbers, it just makes all kinds of sense. So about 3.5 years ago now, I guess, we've switched to making sure that individuals understand and know about short-term rentals, because I've never seen anything that allows a new person with no real estate experience to get started as fast as this does.
thank you for sharing that. We're going to dive into a few of those details here in a minute. But before we go there, I heard a wise podcast host once ask about superpowers, and so before your success as an educator, okay.
Yeah.
And who was Jay Massey growing up, and what superpower were you given? And in particular, we want to know, how does that shape how you help others today?
Got it. No problem. So I'm a military kid, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Lots of Army and Air Force in my background, and I grew up technically in what was then West Germany. So anything from the 1980s inside of USA, I cannot relate to because I was not physically here. So I know growing up overseas is just a different culture. It gives one the ability to adapt to all kinds of situations, because growing up military, every 6 months to 3 years, you're in a new school, new country, sometimes new languages, new everything, which is a great, interesting little way to take on the world, if you will. If I would say, here's what I've discovered about myself is that when I say the superpowers is I'm autistic and I have ADHD. Those are my superpowers, and they manifest themselves because my friends make fun of the fact that anytime I want to take on something new, it doesn't take me long to get too far into it and be able to understand it in such a way that I get to seem like I've been doing it a long time. And most importantly, I'm able to connect the dots for other people to bring them along with me. So through real estate and the complications of it, and financing and the economics and all of those complicated things, or things that can appear to be complicated, I've learned that that's a gift for me. And because, it's important to find out what you're good at, but most importantly, it's also been a gift to be able to share that information with others and watch them transform as well.
How did you transfer the idea of a weakness into a strength? Because as the world sees it, and as I imagine growing up at a certain point, it was a weakness and it was a struggle, but maybe share the moment that it kind of switched over to, hey, this is actually my superpower. This is actually something where I can help others and inspire others and use it to really focus on my strength and add a lot of value. So was there a moment or a season or an event that kind of changed the way that you viewed some of those challenges you faced?
Well, yeah, because at first it was something that I could only do or would only do or only benefited myself or my family. Great, wonderful. And that has a certain degree of satisfaction. But what happened, I guess, for me is that I found myself at 37, 38, and functionally retired with nothing to do and feeling alone because there was no one there to play with, so to speak. And what happened is a gentleman came to me and said, hey, would you be willing to teach me everything you know? Now, you got to understand that by this moment, I was getting fed up with people. And I was like, I know if I told them that it costs money, they'll leave me alone and they won't ask anymore. Well, this gentleman asked, and I answered with what I thought was a ridiculous number at the time. That there's no way on earth that he would pay this. And if he did, it would be worth it, but there's no way it's going to happen. So at least I didn't have to feel like a jerk and say no. And I'd be free. Well, long story short, he didn't say no. He said yes. And then through that transformation process, we were really both going through a transformation. Over the 9-month contract that I did with him, he was able to buy a 16-unit building. He's since gone on and bought many other buildings and learned how to use and raise capital and use none of his own money and credit. And watching that happen for someone else lit me up. It's like, oh my gosh, there is a purpose to being able to consume all of this information beyond just using it for myself. I can share it with people and they'll do it. This is great. So that was clearly one of many moments, but definitely a moment for me, because I did not, at that time, I was just, I don't know. I wasn't in a good spot because it's not good I don't think it's good to have a whole bunch of time on your hands at a very young age and just know how to, protect your own little kingdom, if you will. It didn't work out too well for me in that regard.
Yeah, I could agree more. We were born to work and serve others, right? And use those gifts to help more people. And especially, it is truly more blessed to give than receive. I can't help but think, Jay, about a little bit of our backgrounds. Some of you don't know, I was on Jay Massey's show, Cashflow Diary. Again, you can find that at cashflowdiary.com. It's a podcast he has, and an amazing podcast, to say the least. And I would highly encourage you, probably if not my favorite I've ever been on show, one of the best ones to listen to. But that being said, Jay, during that show, we mentioned how you played basketball. I played basketball growing up. I think you played in college, maybe even in the pros. And I can't help but think of, the guy who sets the screens, right? Who does the box outs? Who's pass first mentality, making sure that he's playing his role in a way which helps the success of others, and he thrives on doing all of those, you could say the dirty work, but all the things that need to be done for someone else to really shine. I can't help but think that that's what you did on that first contract you had. Any correlations there with your personal game and the way you play basketball?
Yeah, 100%. I judge my success by rebounds, block shots, steals, the number of charges I drew, stuff that coaches want someone to do, but that doesn't necessarily make ESPN highlights, if you know what I mean. So, but I don't know, that feels satisfying. That is satisfying to me, to enable someone else to go out there and to be great. It's fun. I mean, that it's why I do what I do. I mean, we can keep doing more transactions. I figured that out a long, long time ago. And that's great and all, but what difference does that make? What example does that set for my children? Because that's honestly what I think about a lot is, do they see, yes, we have things and stuff, and that's wonderful, but what about other people? Is that important? Is that an example that we're setting? Because we as entrepreneurs, in my opinion, we can be some of the most selfless individuals, because in order for us to do well, we have to enable others with our product and or service to do better as well. And if we stay focused on that mission, leveraging our product and service, which in this case, in my world, is short-term rentals, then as people have those great experiences, they'll tell more people, and you know what, we do better as a result. I mean, and because entrepreneurs are connected to so many different people in order to deliver their product or service, we're in a very unique position to change our communities. I mean, you start receiving offers from people who just keep wanting to do business with you over and over again, to the point to where opportunity, well, you don't have to go looking for opportunity anywhere near as much as you maybe did when you first started out.
Yeah. Here's the saying by Zig Ziglar: you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want. And it's just true. When you give and you serve, and especially if you're using your strengths, it can't help but attract people and really help people, because not everyone was born with the same strengths. We need each other as a community and as a way to complement one another. So, shifting a little bit, will you give an example of how your service, and this is kind of more of the tactical, right? So walk us through how your particular service of training, short-term rentals, helps people create and preserve more wealth. In particular, I'm really fascinated about without owning any real estate. Although you mentioned before the show we started that the goal is to own the real estate and it is to have long-term ownership. But in the beginning, when you started, you didn't have that, right? And you had to start out, well, perhaps you didn't. Walk us through the tactical part of what you do and helping people create and preserve more wealth.
Got it. So to be clear from a timeline standpoint, when we started short-term rentals, yes, we had a really large portfolio, but that wasn't it. One of the things that people don't tell you about, at least from stage, or that you don't hear too commonly, is that owning real estate long term is a great way to build wealth, horrible way to build income. Okay, if you're trying to build income, that's something that happens after the debt service has been retired. And if you just got to imagine, at 450 units, that debt service wasn't going away for a little while. And while it was still fine, I mean, it was sustainable life and all this other stuff, but there was just always something to repair, always something going on that was just like to deal with. And we were looking for more active income. We were actually seeking more active income at that particular time. When it comes to short-term rentals, when you understand the use cases, then it gets really clear how we, as the short-term rental entrepreneur, have the ability to be able to serve and help other people. I mean, most people typically, they'll say, well, we do Airbnb or vacation rentals. And the problem with saying that is that it limits the scope and the possibilities of impact that you can have. For example, children's hospitals are always in need of additional housing nearby. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not excited that children get sick or have these extended procedures, but I am excited to know that if I happen to locate one of my short-term rental units nearby a children's hospital, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa can all come and still be comfortable, as opposed to trying to make a hotel or multiple hotel rooms fit at a significantly higher price. I can take great pride in knowing that on a $1 per square foot level, they've gotten a better value. I can take great pride in knowing that they have a kitchen and thus able to control the diet that may be necessary. There may be a special diet required because of the procedure that is currently going on. So being able to provide that space at a price that is comparable to what they would have paid, and definitely less than 2 hotel rooms. So that feels great, period. And then when you teach other people to do that same thing, and then you watch them go through it and how they respond and how they feel, it's like, wow, are you telling me that I get to earn money and the people my customers appreciate what I do and it feels good and it's fun? Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But at the same time, don't be short-sighted, because that's just what we call phase 1. Phase 2 and phase 3, specifically phase 3, is where you get into actually owning the real estate.
So walk us through that. What's the best process to earn your first deal, or to own your first deal after you've earned some cash on the short-term place or the business?
Sure. Let me put it this way. So I'll just give some basic numbers for the number of people so that they can have an understanding. Let's for the sake of this argument, we're going to assume 2 things, and yes, we can prove them, but for now, let's just assume that one, that each bedroom that you're operating as a short-term rental across the year as an average will net you $800 per month. Okay. So what does that mean? If it's a studio or a 1-bedroom, that's $800 per month. If it's a 2-bedroom, I'm saying it's 16. If it's a 3, it's 24. Now, notice I didn't say house or condo or any of those things, because that's not relevant. What's relevant is the number of bedrooms. So you take those number of bedrooms right there. The other thing that we're going to say is that in this example, let's pretend that you're in a situation in which you have $250,000 of liquid investable cash. Maybe you're looking at right now, you're going to go buy a house. Okay, cool. Now, I know for some of you, you're like, what kind of house am I buying for $250,000? I live in California. So here, that's kind of what you got to do. All right. So there's 2 different things. So just remember that there are some relative nature to that. But let's just pretend, for the sake of this conversation, it's $250,000 is what you've saved up. I don't know how long it's taking you to save it, but it's what you've saved. On average, that $250,000 is going to be able to get you anywhere from 10 to as many as possibly 17 short-term rentals. Okay. And I'm just going to keep it simple and say that they're all 1-bedrooms. Okay. When you do that and you do the math, you realize that in 18 months or less, you end up with your $250,000 back. this is the magic that I got excited about. Because what happens is that money comes back. So now you're in a situation 18 months from today to where you have your $250,000 and you have a business that is fully functional, operating smoothly. You have both of those things, whereas before you had one big pile of cash, but you've turned that pile of cash into a stream of income. This enables is peace and calm, specifically at the closing table. Because see, when you saved up that first $250,000, like I said, I don't know how long it take you. I don't know how many hours and blood, sweat, and tears that represents, but it's significant for most people. Okay. And what that means though, is when it comes time to invest it, man, we're human. It's like, this is our precious little $250,000 and we've got to take care of it. We've got to watch it. We've got to make sure it does right. And suddenly we are making really large financial commitments called a mortgage, but yet we haven't gained the necessary experience. Yes, you may have the knowledge, but you don't yet have the experience behind tenant screening or just property management in general. And I know some of you just said, I just hire a property manager. And those of you who have experience know you can't just hire any property manager, and not all property managers are created equal. And you have to know how to supervise same said property manager. You can't just hire it done all the time. There's an experience component that is sorely lacking when we first go out into the real estate world. And mind you, I'm saying this from the position of having helped many people. I've lost count, like thousands, become real estate investors first and witness this problem. And no matter how much training, it's different when your money's on the line, when you're the one staring the tenant in the face and trying to do the eviction or trying to do whatever else is going on. And here's what ends up happening. By building the short-term rental business first, phase 1, and moving into phase 2, which is multiple short-term rentals, you produce a business that keeps laying what I call down payment eggs. It's like the golden goose that keeps laying down payment eggs. And what you do is now, because you know, hey, my worst case scenario is if I wait 18 months, I'll have another $250,000. I promise you, you'll negotiate differently. You'll be way more relaxed at the closing table. All of those things are true. And what ends up happening is you end up building a stronger, bigger, better real estate portfolio than you originally intended or ever could have with any other strategy, because you have this thing that is giving you the experience at screening, at tenant management, at understanding how properties break, specifically plumbing, and how that affects your tenants. All of that, you are able to get that, earn along the way. Our most successful students are those that have jobs already, so they're able to do it on a part-time basis, grow it into something, and then safely transition simply because they know what they're doing and they have the income to back them up. It's been an amazing thing to watch happen.
That's a phenomenal breakdown of how that works, especially with, getting down to the granular with each bedroom, down payment, save it up, and it becomes a goose that lays the golden down payment egg of another $250, which can turn into another $250 over 18 months. I wonder right now about, maybe it's a myth or maybe it's true, but what type of management, for short-term rentals? Is it that much harder than owning, regular rentals? Or is there a myth out there that, this is going to be so daunting, so overwhelming, so much that maybe you have to overcome, but that maybe it's not there? Talk about the difference between a long-term management, set and forget it, if you will, if there's such a thing, versus, okay, I'm actively managing this business right now every day or every week. Walk us through that.
Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you though is, where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
So, and this is the difference that we were able to make in the industry. This is what has been the thing that has created the success that that our students have seen, in my opinion, because I came to the short-term rental industry with a background where, now mind you, when with our real estate portfolio, I have always lived in Southern California. Our properties were in Colorado, Georgia, Tennessee, Michigan, everywhere but California. Okay. And we ran it that way. We built it that way. We rehabbed multifamily apartment buildings that way. Many of the properties never saw them, not even once. And okay, I just want to drive that home, because what that taught me is how to build teams and systems, even at a distance, that could function, right? That's what I learned. And I brought that to the idea of short-term rentals. So it's not everything that you've heard about how daunting and all this other stuff. Oh, that's all true. It's 100% true. Now, here's the difference. Just because it's big doesn't mean it can't be broken down into smaller parts and made simpler. Remember what I said about the superpower earlier. So applying my brain to that, and then leveraging technology the way it is today, makes it so that I can run this and our students can run this. When they fully implement all the parts of our systems, none of our students work more than 1 hour per day managing their portfolio, regardless of size, period. Because they've built all of the pieces that allow them to do exactly that. So let me say that differently so that people can kind of relate to it. Think about last year's income, whatever that was, the whole year. Okay. You know how long it took, how much work that was, or last year's revenue for those of you who are business owners. Think about that. Now imagine all year's revenue coming in 1 month. Okay. That's number one. That's like exciting. Now imagine that taking you 1 hour per day. That's literally how the system works. So when you hear those horror stories about cleaning and claims and guests being special with unique requests and animals and security and all of that stuff, that's all real. And we've developed systems to make that very easy for anyone to be able to handle it, because the technology is there. And it's one thing, and here's the big thing. Many people have tried, or because I see it all the time, they'll try and go get all of the technology pieces and go, cool, I got the same thing. Well, you can't just hand a camera, like a high dollar camera, to anybody and expect to compete with a professional photographer in terms of the quality of the images that are created. Yes, the camera knows what it's doing, but it is an expert tool. But you need an expert tool and an expert who knows how to use it expertly. So that's been our quote unquote secret sauce, is helping everyone learn how to use all of the tools that are available, which tools you should use, which ones not, and why. And then most importantly, how to use them expertly so that you're able to deliver quality service at a price that people can afford and be able to make it as seamless as humanly possible. And at the end of the day, what results is a way to systemize and communicate all of the teams such that it only takes you an hour a day. But yeah, all of that stuff, it's there. I got stories.
So I thank you for sharing that. I have two themes to touch on what you just said. And the first one is this: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Okay. Sure. And so it's the idea that until you're like, you're actually humble and coachable and have the margin in your life, or made the sacrifices to save up that $250, or to say, look, I'm going to commit to the cost of the training and the hours that it takes to get it going, and then the 1 hour thereafter to manage and maintain this. It doesn't matter, right? The student's got to be ready for the teacher, meaning you and what you do, to appear. Mm-hmm. Second thought I had was this: is kryptonite. We talked about superpowers. What's the entrepreneur or business owner's kryptonite? And I can't think about it being this. And maybe you can share our thoughts on this. But the entrepreneur thinks they can do all things better than everyone else, given if they have just a little bit of time and energy, that they don't need to necessarily delegate, or they know they need to, but really they know, if I did it myself, I can really do it better. And that's part of what, again, is their superpower that gives them the belief and the confidence to explore new worlds and create new things. But it's also their kryptonite when they don't actually delegate and they actually don't get the training, and they think they can buy the Canon camera from Costco and take the professional pictures. Yep. With I got to be honest, I struggle with it every day, of this idea of giving up control and being coachable and humble enough to actually get coaching, get training, and actually succeed in something in an efficient way.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess here's what I will be very transparent and clear here. This business of being in short-term rentals will break you of that. You will not get to your first location without being broken of that. It won't happen, because it requires so many different skill sets that are so far apart. So let me say it this way. When it comes to like finding the piece of real estate and understanding our customer and looking at the economics of the situation and breaking down the numbers and etc., that's my wheelhouse all day long. Let me negotiate the real estate, the lease and the contracts, because all day long. Now, ask me, what color does the place need to be? What goes in the kitchen? What is on top of the bed? What are the components that make a perfectly styled bed? I got no clue. It's not my skill set. Well, rather, I had no clue. I have a clue now, but I didn't know that stuff. And it would take too long to learn the concepts of color theory and design and understanding how the colors actually have an influence on a person's experience inside your piece of real estate, and being able to execute that so that you get better reviews. And I wish I was making this stuff up. It's just crazy what's true about all of those things that I have no clue about. And okay, you say you have the experience and you understand that. Great. Now, here's what I need you to do. I need you to order all the stuff and actually assemble it physically yourself. That also not my skill set. And then don't forget, you've got to hang TVs on the wall, and you got to get all of the electrical meaning tech components to work together. Your Wi-Fi networks and configuring all of that and making sure that works. Again, not my skill set. My point is, it takes too many skill sets to come together, which is why it only works if you build a system and team. Otherwise, what ends up happening is I've seen this too. There are many entrepreneurs. They're typically the ones that have one, maybe two locations, and what they're doing is they're often complaining about how they have to do their own laundry and how long it takes them to fold the sheets and oh my God, buying all of this soap and lotion and what am I going to do? And I can't imagine having 5 more of these. Or it literally takes them. And when I hear this, I cry inside because they say, well, I got mine done. Cool. How many do you have? They'll tell me, oh, I got 10, 15. Awesome. So I'm curious, how long does it take you to bring a unit online? Oh, well, when we do that, it's about 3 weeks. I'm like, 3 weeks? Like 3 weeks? So I look at them and I'm like, okay, so you pay expenses for 3 weeks before you go live? Yeah. And around that time, they're looking at me like, what do you mean? Don't you do that? And I'm like, no, it's 72 hours. 72 hours. You give me a blank space right now, 72 hours from right now. Not only will that place be fully furnished and properly designed, we'll have people arriving because we need to be that efficient. And this business like none other. And that's what's been one of the other intangible benefits that I did not know is from the beginning, my wife and I, we had to work together. So for those of you who have always been the real estate charger and your spouse has been like, okay, that's your thing. I've never seen any other strategy where the significant other or the other person in the relationship goes, hey, I can do that part. Let me do that part. Is this something you want to do? Then you do that part and I'll do that. I've never seen that happen. And it happens almost naturally because they want to participate. They've wanted to help for a long, long time, but they couldn't see themselves doing the parts that you're excited about. My wife couldn't see herself doing those parts. But when it came down to helping the designers pick colors and decorate, and oh my God, what goes in a kitchen? I had no idea how much stuff goes in a kitchen. Anyway, when it came to that stuff, she was all over it and made it work. And without her, it wouldn't have worked because I don't know what I don't know about what goes in the kitchen. And you don't want to find out in your review afterwards. You have to be on point from the beginning.
Amazing what you just shared and thank you. And I can't help but think of the intangible benefits such as, a marriage growing closer and the business thriving together and being able to work together with your significant other and maybe in ways that you didn't think was going to happen. But it's so natural if you think about it, like you're saying, like the children's hospital or someone going on a vacation or somebody, traveling for the first time. They want to feel, they want to feel hospitality when they walk in. They want to feel welcome. They want to feel at home as quickly as possible. And hard driving entrepreneurs, I know at least for me, that the empathy and the listening is not my strength, right? I have to really work at that. My wife, it is her strength. Hospitality, empathy, emotionally connecting with people in a way that makes them feel right at home. She and we did our own Airbnb with our own house when we go on vacation. It took me a little while to talk her into it, right? Because she was also very kind of nervous about our own place and this and that. But instantly, you're right. It just kind of gradually, she just did it. She made the place, beautiful, welcoming, gift baskets and we don't drink coffee, but then all of a sudden she's like, we got to get coffee because people want coffee.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't have thought of that stuff. I'm the numbers guy. I'm the negotiations guy. I'm like, how much can we get on a that means we can eat two more times on this vacation. Right. So I can definitely relate with that. And it's been a really connecting way for us to work together.
Yeah, and that's the part that I did not know going in. I discovered it, and I've watched our students do this too, and it's been like, huh. I mean, it because there's all kinds of reasons that people want to be in real estate and be involved, and what we've needed is a way in because the hurdle to get in can feel so large, so looming. And what this has done is that it lowered the bar and cost of entry. I mean, instead of, like I said, you don't have to save up the $250,000 anymore. You don't have to own the house. You just lease the location. You need control over the location. You don't need the entire ownership of the location. But always remember that your job is to continue to expand it so that you can get to the point where you can start just buying properties because here's the bad side. It produces a whole lot of taxable income. and then you've got to do something with that taxable income, which again, we think that, real estate's the best place to put it, but, do whatever you want to do. Maybe there's a cause that you want to fund. Maybe there's a nonprofit you've always wanted to start. Maybe there's a scout. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're out there providing clean, safe, affordable housing that to people who need it in a way that they couldn't get it otherwise. Understand, you enable travel to your area for a myriad of reasons, and you make it more affordable. There are people who will decide, hey, because we can stay at your location, then yeah, we can finally visit New York, California, Florida, Texas. We can finally go see grandma. We can finally go to Thailand. We can finally go to wherever and I say that because we now have students in 16 different countries, and we've been able to help people literally all across the globe make this work for them. And that's what's exciting about it, is literally creating entrepreneurs and watching that transformation, because once they're different, their community is different, and they're reaching people I could never reach or get in front of. And that's amazing.
It is amazing, and it really is life-changing and generational changing too, as you can build passive or active real estate wealth, right? Which you can teach your kids, and then you can give more, save more, and hands down, in my belief, real estate, commercial real estate, investment real estate is the best risk-adjusted rate of return that you can have, and also one of the most rewarding, because you are helping people in their daily lives with travel or housing or any of those things. But I want to shift a little bit here to the capital gains tax portion, because some of our listeners tune in, and I can't help but think about, what does Jay Massey do for those taxes, right? So of course you're getting the offset for the depreciation, right, when you're owning the real estate. So the income that's coming in is going to offset. Maybe you can touch on that. And then second, Jay, if you do sell, or when you do sell, what kind of capital gains tax deferral strategies are you implementing, or what's your take on just on selling real estate in general?
Yeah, I try to never sell, and let me define what I mean when I say the word sell. That means any equity that's created to where that is liquidated and used for something, it is often reinvested in some way, shape, or form. So, in my world, it's when it comes to selling, what I'm always going to make sure is that I have enough offsetting, credits and depreciation in order to deal with whatever that gain would be. Because things like a 1031 don't make sense to me, because just the concept in and of itself seems counterintuitive, because the reason you're selling is because the market is high, and now you're forced to buy well before you want to because of the time window, and the market is probably still high. So it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be forced into that situation. So what else can I do? That's where I'll take on projects that are larger or create more offsetting losses by maybe doing larger rehabs of a larger apartment building or something of that nature. But that's also why I was excited to hear about what you guys do, because I'm like, well, this is way better, because I've got, again, anytime you take control out of the situation or you give that to someone else, that becomes something that I get a little, I just get nervous, especially with time windows, because timing, when to buy, when to sell, there is no government statute that can tell me when that is. And I don't want to be forced into a bad deal or a deal I don't want, because I'm trying to avoid a tax. So let's find another way to deal with that tax, which gives me back my time. That's usually, that's my answer, because everything else, in my opinion, leads to bad judgment.
Yeah, well said. And for the listeners who are just learning for the first time, a little bit of color what Jay's talking about here. So 1031 exchange versus the deferred sales trust. So at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, one of our passions is to provide clear clear tax deferral strategies, whether it's the 1031, Delaware Statutory Trust, Deferred Sales Trust, Charitable Remainder, and really clarify. Our focus is really the Deferred Sales Trust, but we really want to clarify the pros and cons of each. And the 1031, too often, you're forced with what's called a 45 days to identify and 180 days to close. And that time constraint creates this pressure situation where you often overpay for properties, meaning you sell high and you buy higher 180 days later, because most markets in general, when you're selling, and most 1031 exchanges for the clients we worked in the past, they're selling one product in one location in one area and buying another product in the same location, same area, maybe a little bit bigger, which also has to do with equal or greater value, which has to do with equal or greater debt. So you combine all of those ingredients and you go, where are we at right now? Well, we're in the end of 2019 in what might be one of the hottest real estate markets in the history that we know of. And folks are challenged with low inventory, high prices, and that 1031 too often creates an environment where you're making a poor decision just to save the tax. So if you can get another property and do maybe some accelerated depreciation or some kind of major rehab, you can use those expenses to offset the gain, is what Jay's referring to. And or you can just use the deferred sales trust and just move any excess or remainder into the deferred sales trust and slowly use that, slowly receive those funds to offset the gain. So that's enough of that plug for the deferred sales trust. But back to Jay, or any thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah. One thing I want to say though, and so that everybody knows, the only reason I haven't used the deferred sale trust is because I didn't know it existed. Okay. So let's be really clear. There would have been times that I would have, because that would have made sense for the time and whatnot. I just didn't know that was a tool that was even available. I didn't have a podcast like this that I was able to have access to or had ever heard of. And in fact, without you, you're still one of the only persons that I've ever talked to that even knows what it is. So for those of you listening, tell somebody, because there are individuals right now who who are likely in this situation facing a decision. And maybe what you're thinking is going, wow, I wish I had real estate. That's good, but start thinking, how can I help them? How can I serve them? How can I be of value to that person? Because I promise you help somebody avoid some tax issues, they won't forget you. Ever. They won't forget you.
Yeah, thanks Jay for that plug and that endorsement. So, yeah, shifting a little bit more now here. So we're kind of wrapping up the show.
Yeah.
Just curious, Jay, after interviewing countless investors, entrepreneurs, helping people build real estate portfolios, on your podcast, again, cashflowdiary.com, you can find the podcast and all of the other information for Jay and his team. What is the single best practice to implement to be successful in real estate investing and building wealth?
Got it. There are two that are kind of really close together, because at the end of the day, here's the good thing. They're all skills, which means they can be learned. All right. So I don't care who or where you are. All right. You can learn them. The first is that comes to mind is simply fail fast, fail forward, fail frequently. Because as a child, you learned how to fail and keep going. I mean, if you have the physical ability to walk or ever had the physical ability to walk, you learned how to fail. And keep moving forward. You did not accept the fact that you didn't care that your legs weren't fully ready yet. You kept trying, and today you walk and you take it for granted. But the very valuable lesson along the way was, I learned to walk, even though I fell and bruised my knee or hit my elbow or whatever. And you don't even remember how many times it was. And there are so many skills like that. You don't remember how many times you failed at it before. You just remember that now you're good at it. Now you tie your shoe. Now you know how to type. Now you know how to drive. Now you can cook. Now, do you get what I'm saying? Understanding that real estate business, is the same way will help you to go out there and get stuff done. Because when I first started, I did a lot of small transactions, small dollar transactions in a short period of time. And today, I have a lot of experience. And some have said I've got many decades worth, many decades worth, because comparatively speaking, I've bought and sold and transacted more real estate than most, even full-time realtors. And it's simply because I failed fast, failed forward, and failed frequently, right? So it's really important. I mean, those of you who are artists and athletes, you know this. Musicians, you know this. You practice, drill, and rehearse every day, and you don't get every play right. You hit the wrong notes all the time. But yet, you get back in the ring. You get back on the court. You pick up that violin one more time. You play the scales. This is what you do. Because you know on the other end, on performance day, recital day, during the playoffs, that's when all of that practice shows up. To expect more from yourself without having done that in business, that doesn't make any sense to me. And most of us haven't given ourselves enough opportunity, enough times to fail so that we could actually get it right. And then once you've gotten past that, well, it's never going to be perfect. Like, ever. I mean, just think about it for a second. Let's pretend that you're hungry. You want to eat. And you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Awesome. Pick up some food so that I can make it. Awesome. But you say, you know what? I'm not going to get into the car. I'm not going to call the Uber. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to leave my house until all the lights from my house to the grocery store are green. Would you ever actually get out the house and go eat? No, you'd starve. In fact, you already practice this all the time. You've made the decision, this is my destination. And when you encounter that construction worker who's working in the middle of the street and you're like, dude, why are they repairing the street right now? Do you turn around and go home and go, oh, well, guess I can't make it to the grocery store? When you hit the red light, do you say, oh, man, a red light? Grocery stores don't work. No, you wait for the red light to turn green. You go around the construction in the detour because you've made the decision to get to the destination. And if we could just apply that to who we are as humans, who we are as business people, entrepreneurs, I think we'd experience something completely different for ourselves. If we were surrounded by people who were applying that on a daily basis, we'd have the continual encouragement and reminder that this is who we are. And we wouldn't have to wait for the bottoms of our life to fall out for us to step into the greatness that we were born to be. And that's really what happened for me. You got to understand, I just wanted to eat. I didn't know how we were going to feed I didn't know where we were going to stay. And I don't know if you've ever looked your kids or in the eye or had them ask you, hey, Dad, what's for dinner? And you not have an answer, like legitimately not have an answer. Not because you couldn't figure out what choice to make, but because you didn't have the capacity to make a choice and give them an answer. It's something completely different. And when we step into that greatness that I believe is inside every one of us, what happens is something that you're not expecting. Give yourself an opportunity to become that superhero that's inside.
Well, that's worth more than the value of admission here to listen to this podcast, Jay. I want to touch on two quick themes and then finish out with our final question. And I can't help but think of a quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, hey, how long should you give your average baby time to walk? You know, how long should you give them? And the answer is until, right? Until he walks. The answer is just, it's going to happen. We're going to have that resolve to help him walk, and we're going to give him that time to walk. So failing fast, failing forward, and failing frequently, and giving ourselves the grace to say, hey, I'm going to have a resolve until this works.
Yep.
I'm going to fail fast. I'm going to fail forward.
Yep.
And I'm going to fail frequently until I figure this out. And hopefully the why is big enough, right? You touched on, your kids and your family and having some margin and having the ability to even, provide for them, right? What is your why and what's going to drive you to help more people and serve more others? And I've heard another way, it's put like this: if the why gets big, the how gets easy, right? And the why gets big, the how gets easy. And focusing on that why, giving ourselves some grace and going out and really embracing the greatness that we have inside of us. And then the last part is surrounding ourselves with people who are doing the same, right? I think the other saying is we're the average of the next 5 books, conferences, over the next 5 years that we spend time and energy with. And an environment really does affect everything. So surrounding yourself with people who are practicing these habits. So finishing out with our last question here. How do you, Jay, how do you stay centered in your values? Okay. How do you stay centered in your values and also encouraged to charge forward to reach your goals? What are some habits or some disciplines you've implemented?
So prayer, reading the Bible, that is the foundation, because because the world the world comes at all of us. It just does, and it's not designed necessarily to do much other than and oftentimes the people that we respect or look up to or that we have access to is when we're going through our transformation aren't necessarily the ones who have been ordained to get us through our transformation. And it doesn't mean that they don't mean well for you. It just means that they can sometimes feel like an obstacle. And understanding that, one, that the gifts that I've been given are many, that they weren't all just for me, that they were meant to be shared, to build other people up, that my responsibility is to take $1 and turn it into at least $2, to be able to make sure that if I can do something about someone who needs something, to do it. And if I may, I want to show you this photo because it's really important.
Please.
So what you're looking at right there is one of the locations. Now, I know when I said short-term rentals, most people did not think what this photo that they're currently looking at. They probably had a different idea in mind. But photos like this in all of our units, I got to tell you what this represents. See, I couldn't personally pull off a design. That's not something I could do. I don't know how to make that happen. That's not me. If you look inside of this photo, what I get excited about is the number of jobs this represents. Because see, when our customer sees this, they don't care that 1,000 people may have been in this location before. When they walk through the door, this is what they expect it to look like. That means I have to hire maintenance people. I have to hire people who can clean. I had to hire the original designer to make this. And then all of those items had to be purchased and procured, which in and of itself represents an entire chain of entrepreneurs who decided to step out and to be great and do something. And then we pull all of that together. And then because of all of that being together, we get to deliver quality service, assuming we've marketed it right, priced it right, and all those other things, which are all skill sets that we've had to learn and get really good at to make happen. In order for us to do well, I get so excited for the amount of money we have to, that we pay to vendors, because I know those are jobs, those are choices, there's freedom to some people. And because we decided on a big why, there's enough room in there for everybody to participate. And that's what I get excited about. That's what makes me move forward. I spend way more time educating, teaching, and training and investing into our community than I do actually my own, short-term rental business, mostly because, well, it's easy for me to operate it and it doesn't take that much time. And it's way more meaningful. And that's the thing. seeing the Facebook posts over and over again, seeing them duplicate and be able to create something that looks similar and have the same 5 stars reviews, man, that fires me up all over again every day. You know, knowing that somebody who's listening to this, and yeah, I'm talking to you and you know who you are. That's why I'm here today for that person. I don't even know your name and it doesn't matter, but I know that you're listening. And because I was listening, and that's exactly what gets me going, is knowing that we've created an opportunity, and all of us as entrepreneurs create opportunities for other people to also succeed. In fact, we don't succeed otherwise. All of that is biblical principles. All of that is just how we live. And the challenge becomes now that we've done this, what's the next step? How do we keep pushing to the next bigger thing? And, you know, I don't know what that looks like all the time, but I'm just going to keep my ear to the ground and listen, you know, and that's what's great. You know, I'm looking forward to discovering and seeing and possibly doing more of the speaking and all that stuff on stages and whatnot. All of those things are there, but, you know, it's one step at a time, I guess is the best way of saying it. But being consistent, winning the day, these are all things, and understanding that you don't have to win every day. I mean, give yourself the freedom to fail. These are things that are necessary because, like I said, the world, especially for some of us understand that the world, for people who look like I do the things that, you know, the world doesn't say that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You have to discard what the world is telling you. You know what's inside. Go become that thing that you see. And yes, it's possible. And when you surround yourself with more of the right people, it also becomes more probable. And that's what I get excited about. Those are the habits that I have to keep practicing, because it can go away. I mean, it can go away. We can drift from the habits that got us to where we go.
Well, that is as encouraging as it comes, and one of your superpowers is definitely encouragement. So for those listeners who just heard that, rewind that again and hear how Jay is speaking to all of us, right? To be inspired to go out and be all that you were created to be. So I want to, first of all, thank Jay for being on the show and remind everybody that you can find him at cashflowdiary.com. He also has an amazing podcast where he's giving this inspiration and encouragement about every single day, and with bringing on guests who are doing the same. And that's all you can find all of that at cashflowdiary.com, or search that on any of the major podcast providers. So I want to also thank our listeners again for listening to another episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast. As always, we believe that most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Hopefully you've gained some wisdom, not only with the inspiration that Jay provided, but also tactically with depreciation, offsetting capital gains tax and income, building long-term wealth, and perhaps using the deferred sales trust as one of those options to consider. As always, not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to grow your wealth. Until next time, go make it a great, great day.